Understanding anger. Understanding anger begins with the recognition that this emotion is a natural response to perceived provocations and injustices. Stoicism teaches us that anger is not inherently negative, but rather a reaction that, when misdirected, can result in harmful actions. For Stoics, understanding the origin of anger is crucial. This emotion often arises from unmet expectations or situations beyond our control. When we fail to meet our expectations, we feel frustration, which can transform into anger. The first step in understanding anger is, therefore, self-analysis. Asking oneself what exactly is causing this emotion can help clarify the roots of the problem. For example, if you are irritated with a colleague who missed a deadline, reflection may reveal that the anger is rooted in a sense of disrespect or concern for your own professional image. This identification is essential to prevent anger from becoming a destructive feeling. Moreover, Stoics believe that anger is often exacerbated by our own interpretation of events. A neutral occurrence can be interpreted in different ways, depending on our past experiences and biases. Therefore, an important part of understanding anger is questioning our own assumptions. What may seem like an offense might not have been intentional. Recognizing that our interpretation may be distorted allows us to approach the situation with more calmness and rationality. Finally, understanding anger involves accepting that this emotion is part of the human experience. We all feel anger at some point. Stoicism does not ask us to suppress this emotion, but rather to accept it as an aspect of the human condition. By doing so, we can approach it with more compassion, both for ourselves and for others. This acceptance can be the first step toward transforming anger into a motivating force for change and self-discovery. 2.1 Reflection and Self-Control. Reflection is a central practice in Stoicism and is fundamental for self-control. When anger arises, Stoics advise us to take a moment to pause and reflect before acting. This pause is essential, as it allows us to step back from the situation and avoid impulsive reactions that could lead to undesirable consequences. Reflection helps us consider the situation from different angles and evaluate how we truly want to respond. During reflection, a useful Stoic practice is to use questions to guide our thoughts. For example, we might ask ourselves, is this situation worth my emotional energy, or what is the worst that can happen if I don't react? These questions not only help us see the situation in a new light, but also prompt us to ponder the validity of our anger. This critical analysis can reveal that the issue that irritated us is not as significant as it seems, helping to dissipate the anger. Furthermore, the practice of self-control is intrinsically linked to discipline and mental training. For Stoics, self-control is like a muscle. The more we exercise it, the stronger it becomes. Practicing self-control means deliberately choosing not to be swept away by momentary emotions. Instead of automatically reacting to anger, we can opt for a response that reflects our values and principles, cultivating a more harmonious life. Finally, reflection and self-control also involve accepting that anger can be a learning tool. By observing how anger manifests in our lives, we can begin to identify patterns and trends that reveal areas for personal growth. Each time we find ourselves in a situation that provokes anger, we have a learning opportunity that, if well utilized, can help us become more balanced and aware individuals. 3.1 Acceptance and Emotional Distance. Acceptance is one of the fundamental principles of Stoicism. It involves recognizing that there are circumstances we cannot control and that life is full of challenges and frustrations. Accepting these truths can be a powerful step toward reducing the intensity of anger. When we realize that anger often arises from our resistance to what is happening, we can begin to adopt a more serene attitude. Emotional distance is a Stoic practice that complements acceptance. By emotionally distancing ourselves from a situation that provokes anger, we can observe the event from an external perspective. This allows us to understand that our emotions do not define the reality of the situation. Instead of letting anger consume us, we can view the situation as an impartial observer, which often leads us to a more balanced and rational response. A crucial aspect of acceptance is understanding that anger is often triggered by unmet expectations. When we expect others to behave in a certain way or for things to go as planned, we create a space for frustration and, consequently, for anger. By accepting that we cannot control the behavior of others or the outcome of events, we can find a sense of peace that helps us deal with anger more effectively. Ultimately, the practice of acceptance and emotional distance also teaches us to be more resilient. When facing challenging situations, the ability to accept what we cannot change strengthens us and prepares us to handle future challenges. This resilience helps us see life in a more positive light and react to anger constructively, transforming the emotion into fuel for personal growth. 4.1 Practicing empathy. Empathy is a powerful tool that can transform our experience of anger. By practicing empathy, we are prompted to consider the perspective of the other person, which can help dissipate anger. Often, when we are angry, we focus solely on our own feelings and experiences. However, recognizing that everyone has their own struggles and motivations can help us cultivate compassion. The practice of empathy involves asking questions like, what might this person be facing that I don't see? This reflection allows us to humanize those we are irritated with, reminding us that everyone is fallible and has their own internal battles. This perspective can soften our anger and help us respond in a more understanding and supportive manner. Additionally, empathy also teaches us to see the situation from a broader angle. Instead of focusing on our emotions, we are invited to consider the context. If someone has offended us, perhaps that person was dealing with stress, pressures, or personal frustrations that led them to behave inappropriately. This understanding can not only alleviate our anger but also inspire us to offer support rather than retaliation. Empathy not only helps mitigate anger but also fosters healthier relationships. By approaching situations with compassion and understanding, we create space for dialogue and peaceful conflict resolution. This empathetic environment benefits not only ourselves but also those around us, cultivating a culture of respect and understanding in human interactions. 5.1 The power of indifference. The concept of indifference is a fundamental pillar of Stoic philosophy. For the Stoics, indifference does not mean apathy or emotional detachment, but rather a conscious choice not to let ourselves be affected by events that are beyond our control. When we manage to cultivate this indifference, we have the opportunity to experience emotional freedom. Anger often arises when we cling to specific outcomes or allow ourselves to be affected by actions that we cannot control. Indifference teaches us to focus on what truly matters, our own thoughts, decisions, and actions. This gives us power over our emotions. When something bothers us, we can ask ourselves, does this really matter? Is it worth my emotional energy? This reflection helps us redirect our focus and concentrate on things we can genuinely change, such as our reactions and attitudes. Moreover, cultivating indifference towards external factors helps us build inner resilience. By accepting that we cannot control everything, we become better prepared to deal with the inevitable challenges of life. This enables us to approach difficulties with a calmer and more centered mindset, rather than being swept away by intense emotions like anger. Finally, indifference also promotes inner peace. When we learn to detach ourselves from events we cannot influence, we begin to experience a state of tranquility. This peace not only enhances our quality of life, but also allows us to interact with others more harmoniously, without being overwhelmed by negative emotions. 6.1 Transforming anger into positive action. Transforming anger into positive action is one of the most powerful ways to cope with this emotion. Instead of letting anger consume us or lead to destructive behaviors, we can harness that energy to promote change in our lives and communities. Stoicism teaches us that anger can be a sign that something needs to be addressed or changed. By channeling this emotion into constructive action, we not only handle anger in a healthy way, but also potentially benefit ourselves and others. The first step in transforming anger into positive action is to identify the underlying cause of the emotion. Instead of simply reacting to the situation that made us upset, we should pause and reflect on what is really bothering us. For example, if you're frustrated with the lack of support on a team project, that anger may indicate that you value collaboration and teamwork. With this clarity, you can address the issue more proactively by discussing the importance of collaboration with your colleagues. A practical approach is to create an action plan. This involves setting clear goals for how you can address the situation that caused the anger. If the anger is directed at social injustices or issues you observe in your community, this can inspire actions such as volunteering, advocacy, or getting involved in community activities. Transforming anger into action not only helps resolve the source of the problem, but also provides a sense of purpose and accomplishment, turning a negative emotion into a driving force for good. Additionally, transforming anger into positive action can also be seen as an opportunity for self-development. By confronting the causes of our anger and acting upon them, we challenge ourselves to grow and become better versions of ourselves. This process not only helps to reduce anger, but also promotes resilience, allowing us to handle similar situations more effectively in the future. By using anger as a catalyst for positive change, we benefit not only ourselves, but also impact those around us. This transformation can inspire others to take action and create a wave of change that extends beyond ourselves. Ultimately, Stoicism teaches us that true strength does not lie in suppressing our emotions, but in using them as tools to shape a better world. 9.1 Attachments and Emotions. Stoics assert that emotions are often provoked by our interpretations of reality, rather than reality itself. Often, we engage in arguments because we have an emotional attachment to certain beliefs or opinions. This attachment can lead us to act impulsively and lose our objectivity. For example, if we are deeply attached to an idea about politics or religion, we may feel threatened when someone expresses a contrary opinion. This sense of threat can cause us to react defensively, making the discussion more about winning than understanding. This type of emotional attachment not only distorts our perception but also hinders productive dialogue. Instead of focusing on what is true or beneficial, we become more concerned with protecting our ego and our beliefs. Stoicism teaches us that emotions are controllable. We can learn to observe our feelings without being carried away by them. By recognizing that our emotional response is based on our interpretation, we can choose to act more rationally and balanced. Furthermore, attachment can lead us to disregard information that does not align with our beliefs. Stoics encourage us to cultivate an open mind, to question our own opinions, and to seek the truth, even if that means changing our minds. When we enter discussions with a closed mind, we are merely perpetuating division and misunderstanding. Instead, we should strive to see the situation from the other person's perspective, recognizing that there are various facets to any issue. Practicing self-awareness is fundamental in this process. This involves reflecting on our emotions and the reasons behind them before entering a discussion. Asking ourselves what is truly at stake and why a particular opinion is so important can help clarify our minds. This self-knowledge allows us to approach discussions with a more balanced and less emotional perspective. Cultivating detachment regarding opinions and outcomes can help us deal better with unnecessary arguments. This does not mean we should abandon our beliefs, but rather that we should be willing to discuss these beliefs with flexibility and openness. By letting go of the attachment to the need to be right, we can engage in more meaningful and constructive dialogues, fostering an environment of mutual respect. 9.2 Lack of control. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of differentiating between what we can control and what we cannot. In discussions, we often try to control others' reactions and opinions, which is a futile effort. This lack of control can lead to frustration and stress, especially when people resist changing their opinions, even in the face of clear evidence. By clinging to the idea that we can influence or change someone else's perspective, we lose sight of what we can truly do, control our own responses and behaviors. Accepting the lack of control over others' reactions is liberating. It allows us to focus on how we can act virtuously, regardless of the outcome of the discussion. Instead of worrying about what the other person will think or say, we can concentrate on communicating our ideas clearly and respectfully. This approach helps us remain calm and centered, even in potentially heated discussions. Moreover, acceptance of our lack of control helps us avoid the emotional weariness that often accompanies difficult debates. When we realize that we cannot change someone else's opinion, we can choose not to invest our energy in unproductive discussions. This allows us to redirect our focus to issues that truly matter or are within our control, such as our own actions and reactions. Stoics also encourage us to practice resilience in the face of resistance from others. Instead of feeling defeated or demotivated when discussions do not go in our favor, we should view this as an opportunity to learn and grow. Every interaction, even those that do not end as we hoped, can teach us something valuable about ourselves and how we relate to others. By cultivating a mindset of acceptance regarding what we cannot control, we can experience greater peace of mind. This peace enables us to interact with others more openly and empathetically, fostering constructive dialogue. Stoicism teaches us that true victory does not lie in winning the discussion, but in maintaining our integrity and virtue, regardless of what others may think or say. 9.3 Virtue of Acceptance. Acceptance is one of the pillars of Stoicism. By accepting that people have different opinions and that not all discussions will lead to mutual understanding, we can approach conversations with a calmer and more respectful mindset. This acceptance does not imply agreeing with the other person's perspective, but rather recognizing everyone's right to have their own opinion. This practice can be especially challenging in a world where polarization seems to be on the rise. The virtue of acceptance helps us reduce conflict and tension during discussions. When we enter a conversation willing to listen and consider the other person's perspective, the atmosphere tends to be more collaborative than competitive. This creates a space where everyone feels safe to express their ideas, leading to richer and more productive dialogues. Acceptance also helps us remain humble, recognizing that, just like others, we are subject to mistakes and limitations. Accepting diverse opinions is essential for personal growth. When we challenge our own beliefs and are open to learning from others, we expand our understanding of the world. Stoicism encourages us to seek knowledge and truth, which often involves confronting perspectives that differ from our own. This willingness to learn is a form of virtue that makes us wiser and more empathetic. Acceptance also allows us to focus on what we can control. Instead of getting lost in discussions about what we cannot change, we can ask ourselves, how can I act virtuously in this situation? This guides us to act with integrity, regardless of the outcome of the conversation. In this way, acceptance frees us from the need for external validation and connects us to our essence and principles. The practice of acceptance helps us cultivate a sense of inner peace. When we let go of the need to always be right or to win a discussion, we can experience greater tranquility. This inner peace is one of the greatest treasures of Stoicism, allowing us to live more authentically and balanced, even in the face of disagreements and conflicts. 9.4 Practicing active listening. Active listening is an essential skill that can transform the way we communicate. In Stoicism, this practice is fundamental for truly understanding another's perspective. Actively listening means paying attention not only to the words being spoken, but also to the tone, body language, and underlying emotions. This mindfulness can help us notice nuances that might otherwise go unnoticed. One of the advantages of active listening is that it promotes a more meaningful dialogue. When people feel they are being genuinely heard, they are more likely to open up and share their ideas. This not only facilitates communication, but can also create an environment of mutual respect where everyone feels valued. Stoicism teaches us that by actively listening, we are practicing the virtues of respect and empathy, which are essential for any human interaction. Furthermore, active listening helps us avoid misunderstandings. Many pointless arguments arise because the parties involved are not genuinely understanding what the other is saying. By practicing active listening, we can clarify confusing points and ensure that we are on the same page before responding. This not only improves the quality of the conversation, but can also reduce frustration and tension that often accompany heated debates. Active listening is also a form of self-control, a fundamental principle of Stoicism. Instead of reacting impulsively to what we hear, we take a moment to consider the most appropriate response. This demonstrates self-control and discipline, traits valued by Stoics. By refraining from reactive responses, we can approach the discussion with more clarity and intentionality, contributing to a more productive dialogue. Practicing active listening helps us cultivate healthier and more meaningful relationships. When we show that we are willing to listen and consider others' opinions, we create a space of trust. This not only facilitates future interactions, but also helps us grow as individuals as we learn from the experiences and perspectives of others. Active listening is a valuable skill that, when practiced, enriches our lives and interactions. 9.5 Reflecting on Virtue, continued. Reflecting on virtue is a central practice in Stoicism that invites us to examine our actions and behaviors in light of our values. When we engage in discussions, it is crucial to ask ourselves whether our words and actions align with the virtues we value, such as justice, wisdom, and self-control. This self-assessment helps us maintain our integrity and recognize when we are straying from our ethical path. When we commit to acting with virtue, our interactions become more constructive and less impulsive. An important aspect of this reflection is the practice of self-criticism. Stoics believe that honest self-analysis is fundamental to personal growth. Instead of clinging to pride or the need to always be right, we should be willing to question our own beliefs and behaviors. This helps us identify patterns that may lead us into unnecessary arguments. For example, if we notice that we often get caught up in debates over trivial topics, we might reflect on what that says about us and what we could change in our behavior. Reflecting on virtue also helps us understand the impact our words can have on others. By considering how our opinions and arguments may be perceived, we can be more careful in how we express ourselves. This is especially important in heated discussions, where word choice can make the difference between a productive dialogue and unnecessary conflict. By committing to act with virtue, we become more aware of the power of our communication and the role it plays in building healthy relationships. Additionally, this practice of reflection encourages us to set more meaningful goals for our interactions. Instead of simply seeking to win a debate, we can ask ourselves, how can I contribute to a dialogue that is enriching for everyone involved? This shift in focus not only transforms our approach to conversations, but also motivates us to act in ways that promote collective well-being. Stoicism teaches us that true virtue lies in acting for the greater good, and this is especially relevant in human interactions. Reflecting on virtue helps us cultivate a mindset of gratitude and respect. By recognizing the virtues we value, we can better appreciate the qualities of others, even when we disagree. This appreciation not only makes us more tolerant, but also strengthens our relationships, as we are more likely to recognize and celebrate the contributions of others. This approach allows us to handle discussions more positively and constructively, promoting an environment of mutual learning and growth. 9.6 The Value of Humility. Humility is an essential Stoic virtue that reminds us of our place in the grand scheme of life. In discussions, we can often be swayed by a sense of superiority, believing that our opinions are the most correct. However, Stoicism teaches us that this perspective can be limiting and harmful. To be humble means recognizing that we are all imperfect and that our perceptions are influenced by our unique experiences and contexts. By embracing this humility, we become more open to learning from others, rather than simply trying to impose our views. A powerful practice associated with humility is the willingness to question our own beliefs. Often, we enter discussions convinced that we are right, but humility encourages us to consider the possibility that we may be wrong. This not only makes us more receptive to dialogue, but can also enrich our understanding of the topic at hand. When we allow ourselves to explore another's perspective, we have the chance to broaden our viewpoint and gain new insights that might otherwise be lost. Humility is also fundamental to building healthy relationships. When we approach discussions with a learning mindset, we show respect for others' opinions and validate their experiences. This creates an environment where everyone feels safe to express their ideas, leading to more collaborative interactions. Humility helps us avoid arrogance and superiority, which often generate tension and division in discussions. Moreover, humility allows us to practice empathy. By acknowledging that everyone has their own stories and struggles, we become better equipped to connect with others on a deeper level. This empathetic connection is vital in discussions, as it helps us understand not only the arguments presented but also the emotions and motivations behind them. When we manage to put ourselves in another's shoes, the discussion shifts from a battle of opinions to an opportunity for mutual learning and growth. Humility teaches us that the true value of discussions lies not in winning, but in cultivating a deeper and more respectful understanding. By detaching ourselves from the need to be right, we make room for more meaningful and enriching dialogues. Stoicism reminds us that humility is a powerful force that allows us to navigate the complexities of human interactions with grace and wisdom. 9.7 Cultivating silence. Cultivating silence, in the context of Stoicism, refers to the practice of speaking less and listening more. In a world filled with voices and opinions, it is often easy to get carried away by the need to express our own ideas, even when the conversation is unproductive. Silence, when practiced intentionally, can be a powerful tool for reflection and understanding. By refraining from adding more noise, we allow other voices to be heard, enabling a more balanced and respectful dialogue. Silence is also an invitation to introspection. Before entering into a discussion, we may benefit from silencing ourselves for a moment and reflecting on our own motivations and emotions. Stoicism teaches us to consider the reasoning behind our words and actions. This practice of reflection helps us formulate more thoughtful and conscious responses rather than impulsive reactions. By adopting this approach, we become more aware of the impact our words can have on others. Furthermore, silence allows us to observe and learn. When we choose to listen rather than speak, we have the opportunity to absorb valuable information and perspectives. This not only enriches our understanding but also demonstrates respect for others' contributions. Stoicism values the pursuit of wisdom and the humility to recognize that there is always more to learn. By cultivating silence, we can become more effective learners in discussions and, as a result, evolve in our understanding. Practicing silence can also be a way to avoid unnecessary arguments. Often, debates escalate due to poorly chosen words or a lack of consideration for what the other is trying to express. By opting to remain silent in moments of tension, we can prevent the escalation of conflicts. This strategy does not mean we should stay silent forever, but rather that we should be selective about when and how we engage in conversations. Sometimes, the best response is simply to listen and ponder. Silence is a form of self-awareness and self-control. By learning to discern between the need to speak and the wisdom of listening, we become more balanced in our interactions. Stoicism teaches us that self-control is fundamental to a virtuous life. Cultivating silence not only enhances our communication skills, but also strengthens our practice of self-control, allowing us to engage in discussions more intentionally and wisely. 9.8 Acceptance of imperfection. Acceptance of imperfection is a central concept in Stoicism that teaches us to embrace the reality that we are all fallible. In discussions, it is easy to fixate on the flaws of others or our own, leading to a cycle of criticism and resentment. Acceptance helps us see that imperfection is an intrinsic part of the human experience. When we recognize this, we can free ourselves from the expectation that discussions should always be perfect or that all participants should behave ideally. By accepting imperfection, we are more likely to approach conversations with empathy and understanding. This allows us to be kinder to others, even when we disagree with their opinions. This empathy is vital for cultivating productive dialogue, as it creates an environment where people feel valued regardless of their flaws or mistakes. Stoicism teaches us that compassion is an appropriate response to imperfection, and this compassion can be a catalyst for more open and honest conversations. Moreover, accepting imperfection helps us to be more self-compassionate. Often, we are our harshest critics, and this self-criticism can manifest in discussions, leading us to feel the need to defend our positions more fervently. When we recognize that everyone makes mistakes and that fallibility is part of the human condition, we can more easily forgive ourselves. This does not mean we should avoid self-reflection, but rather that we should be kinder in our judgment, allowing ourselves to grow from our experiences. Acceptance of imperfection also allows us to adjust our expectations regarding others. Often, we expect people to behave ideally in discussions, which can lead to frustration when they do not. By understanding that everyone is on a journey of learning and growth, we can be more patient and flexible in our interactions. This, in turn, creates a more welcoming environment for the exchange of ideas, where people feel comfortable expressing their opinions without fear of judgment. Another dimension of acceptance of imperfection is the willingness to learn from mistakes. Instead of viewing mistakes as failures, we can approach them as opportunities for learning. This is particularly valuable in discussions, where mutual learning can lead to a deeper understanding of the subject at hand. By cultivating a mindset that values learning over perfection, we become more open to feedback and constructive criticism. This openness helps us evolve, not only in our opinions, but also in our communication skills. Acceptance of imperfection reminds us that the goal of discussions should not be victory or superiority, but rather understanding and mutual growth. When we detach ourselves from the need to always be right, we can focus on what truly matters, building healthy relationships and promoting respectful dialogue. Stoicism teaches us that true wisdom lies in the ability to accept what we cannot change and to focus on how we can positively contribute to human interactions. 9.9 The practice of patience. Patience is a virtue that Stoics deeply value, especially in situations of conflict or discussion. In a world where instantaneity is often expected, cultivating patience allows us to slow down and respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. This virtue is essential for maintaining calm in tense moments, enabling us to reflect on our responses before acting. Patience helps us avoid unnecessary escalations of conflict and creates a safer space for discussion. Practicing patience in discussions involves actively listening to what the other person is saying, without interrupting or rushing the conversation. This attentive listening is a form of respect that shows the other person that their opinions are valued. Moreover, when we take the time to truly listen, we can better understand the other person's perspective, which can lead to more effective conflict resolution. Patience helps us see the situation in a new light and approach differences with a more open mindset. Another dimension of patience is the ability to tolerate uncertainty. Often, discussions do not lead to clear conclusions or immediate agreements. Patience allows us to accept this uncertainty without becoming frustrated or discouraged. This acceptance can be a catalyst for healthier dialogue, as it encourages us to continue exploring the issue at hand rather than giving up. It can also be a valuable learning experience for everyone involved, as it shows that the process is as important as the final outcome. Furthermore, patience helps us cultivate emotional resilience. In difficult discussions, it is easy to be swept away by intense emotions, such as anger or frustration. However, by practicing patience, we can learn to manage these emotions more effectively. This does not mean repressing our feelings, but rather finding ways to express them constructively and appropriately. This skill not only improves the quality of our interactions, but also allows us to maintain a balanced perspective in challenging moments. Patience teaches us that the best solutions often require time and reflection. In a world that values speed and efficiency, patience reminds us that some issues require deeper examination. This approach not only leads to more meaningful outcomes, but also fosters a sense of mutual respect in discussions. When all parties involved recognize the value of patience, we create an environment conducive to dialogue and collaboration. 10.1 The importance of forgiveness. Forgiveness is an essential Stoic practice that plays a fundamental role in how we deal with misunderstandings and conflicts. In discussions, it is easy to cling to resentments and grievances, but this attitude only serves to fuel the cycle of negativity. Stoicism teaches us that by forgiving, we are not only releasing others from their failings, but also freeing ourselves from the emotional burden that these grievances can impose. Forgiveness is a form of self-care that allows us to move forward with greater ease. One of the keys to forgiveness is recognizing that we are all imperfect and make mistakes. By accepting that fallibility is part of the human experience, we can view others' actions in a new light. This helps us cultivate empathy and compassion, enabling us to respond to offenses more constructively. When we understand that we all face our own struggles, it becomes easier to let go of resentments and seek reconciliation. Additionally, forgiveness promotes emotional healing. When we hold on to resentment, we are essentially allowing the pain of the past to continue affecting us in the present. Forgiveness offers us the opportunity to leave that pain behind and create space for more positive experiences. This emotional release not only improves our well-being but also enables us to engage in discussions in a more balanced and healthy manner. Thus, we are better able to focus on solutions rather than getting lost in negative emotions. Forgiveness is also a way to demonstrate emotional maturity. Instead of reacting with anger or revenge, choosing to forgive is an act of strength and self-control. It allows us to handle conflicts more wisely and thoughtfully. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of living according to our virtues, and forgiveness is an essential component of this practice. When we forgive, we are acting with integrity and fostering an environment where dialogue and understanding can flourish. Forgiveness does not mean we should forget or minimize the offenses. Instead, it involves acknowledging the pain caused, learning from it, and then deciding to let it go. This practice helps us establish healthy boundaries and protect ourselves from future offenses while allowing us to maintain inner peace. By integrating forgiveness into our lives, we become more resilient and capable of facing the challenges that discussions may bring, fostering a more positive and constructive dialogue. These Stoic practices offer valuable guidance for handling discussions and human interactions in a healthier and more productive manner. By cultivating wisdom, reflection on virtue, humility, silence, acceptance of imperfection, patience, and forgiveness, we become better prepared to face the challenges that arise in our interactions. Each of these practices helps us develop a mindset that prioritizes respect, mutual learning, and personal growth. At the core of Stoicism is the idea that our responses to life's circumstances are more important than the circumstances themselves. By internalizing these practices, we can not only improve the quality of our discussions, but also become more balanced and wise individuals. This internal transformation is reflected in our external interactions, fostering an environment where dialogue is valued and relationships are strengthened. These Stoic virtues are not merely theoretical concepts, but practices that can be incorporated into our daily lives. As we strive to adopt these approaches in our lives, we become more aware of our role in interactions and more willing to contribute positively to the well-being of others. This journey of growth and self-discovery is one of the most significant contributions that Stoicism can offer us. Thus, by becoming practitioners of these virtues, we not only transform ourselves into more complete individuals, but also positively impact the lives of those around us. Ultimately, Stoicism teaches us that true wisdom lies in the ability to live according to our values and to approach human interactions with an open mind and heart. May we always seek this wisdom and share the fruits of our practice with those who surround us.